This conference will now be recorded.
All right, as always, everything that we're going to be talking about today is for educational purposes only. Nothing is intended as any type of investment advice. So I want to talk about something right now that's just it's pretty much one of the most important things that I look at when I trade, and it's gray areas. And I just put it out there. There's certain things, okay, basically what we look for. We look for a T. Okay, so everyone knows, the prints that we saw in T yesterday, and this thing is just getting it's just a beautiful, beautiful trade. That's what I look for. That's what I trade off of. Are there a ton of other stocks out there that are going to move that I have no idea what's going to happen? Yeah, there are. Constantly it goes on. But what I do is I look for a high probability trade. You can't trade everything that moves. So what I look for is something that is definitive, and I use that word all the time, something that tells us that definitively is going to happen. So let's pull up Facebook, and I just want to give you an example of this. All right, just because you think something's going to happen or should happen or whatever the case may be doesn't mean it tells you to a high percentage that it's going to. So let's talk about gray area for a second. Facebook. Okay, guys, what was my price target in Facebook? Based off the prints that we had yesterday at 50, I had one price target. We also saw the entire market come off. But today, when it was underneath 150, I think it was when you asked me a price target, we were down somewhere around 147.50 or somewhere in there. What was our price target for the up move based off of what we saw there? 150.50. So this is where a gray area happens. 150.50 was my price target, but that's not what I think. All right. The reason 150.50 is my price target is because if we get more prints at 150.50, we should, well, first of all, if it's going to go above there, we should get more prints. That shows us that we're going to get more of that extended pullback that comes back in there. But at the end of the day right now, can I say, even though the prints we had at 150 yesterday, and let me just blow this up so you guys can all see it. It's just a quick lesson that I want to give everyone. Okay, based off of what we saw yesterday at 150, we should get towards that print line. So even if it's 151, whatever, but closer towards that print line that we had. So 150.50 becomes my price target from today because it's so much further down. So if you ask me, is it gonna go down or up? I'm in a gray area because in the first place, it hit my price target. And it's coming back down, and it came back down. I mean, it wasn't really that hard. It didn't hit. If we look at the actual high of today, it hit 150.35. So it was actually a beautiful trade, pushing towards the 150.50, not hitting it, and triggering back down. But there's two parts of it. So because there's two parts of it, I'm kind of stuck in that in between spot, where I think, well, not that I think, to a high probability, based off the amount of prints we saw at 150 yesterday, we should be going up higher than what we've hit so far. But then at the same time, it essentially hit my price target, so I have no problem taking it back down. Okay, anytime that there's contradicting thoughts within a stock, is that a high probability trade? Anytime contradicting thoughts on what should and could happen, is that a high? No, unfortunately, it's not really. Okay, a high probability trade on the day trade aspect of things is the fact it pushed towards 150.50, didn't hit it, triggered back down, high probability trade all day long. But I'm not looking for, multiple dollars. I'm not looking for this thing to satisfy all the selling that we saw from it yesterday. I'm going to take a quick, a nice 50 cent or whatever. In this case, it actually moved a whole bunch. But that does not mean the stock's not coming back up. So I'm stuck in a gray area when it comes to if I was going to take a longer term trade. Is that something that you want to get into? Just out of curiosity, if we think, is there any, even though we know Facebook should go down right now, is that a good stock for us to even look at to take any type of entry? Unless you're day trading. I'm talking about overall type trade. Now we got to find something that's better. Okay, now if this stock pulls back up to that print line, boom, perfect. Okay, then I'll look to take a longer term trade in. Well, I'm not that I'm going to, but okay, then if you're trading on longer term side of things, then that's a spot, perfect time to look for that longer term trade to really get that move towards the downside. But when we find a gray area, guys, sometimes it could go either way. Okay, I don't care what methodology you use within trading. Sometimes there's going to be a stock out there based off whatever your methodology is it's going to tell you it could go either way. And when it could go either way, does anyone want to take their money and put it into that? Unless you want to gamble. If you want to gamble your money, then that's fine. I honestly care less. Okay, but it's just so when we're looking at Facebook right now, I know what overall has to happen. I also, to a very high percentage, think that Facebook has to pull up way more than it did. But at the same time, it doesn't have to. Does that make sense to everyone? Does everyone understand the different, basically what I'm saying? It should. I think it's going to, but it doesn't have to, because technically it did satisfy what our expectations would have been. All right. So Facebook, I don't really need to explain any more than what I just did. I mean, you guys, you know what my feelings on it are. Now, on the day trade, that's why day trading is way more easier than, first of all, I'm not a big options fan just because I don't like time. Okay, I don't need the leverage, and I'm not a big fan of time and having to, have more variables within my trade than just knowing whether it's going up or down. But you know what? If you are trading options coming back into it right now, I would hold off on this one. There's just not much going on there. But Facebook is certainly going to stay on our afternoon list because of the fact that we should see something. It's just a matter of what it's going to show us coming in. Let's take a look at SQ. Now, SQ this morning, remember, this morning was absolutely messed up. I could almost on not every stock that's moving, but every stock that I call out, I could tell you exactly what the story is and exactly what's happening. Guys, I'm lost this morning, as most of us that have TradeStation know, and it's our fault. Because we know TradeStation, when you get a bunch of stocks that trade some ridiculous amount of volume, what's going to happen is it's going to freeze. Okay, their servers cannot handle that many stocks going off. And if you have one screen up, you should be fine. Okay, but I'm sitting here, I have 6 screens that are up there. So that's 6 screens of different data that have to load up. I know for a fact that when we see something like that I need to shut some screens down. And I didn't do it this morning because I haven't had one glitch in TradeStation probably in months. I also haven't updated TradeStation in months, but that's besides the point. So I'm kind of lost. I took an early lunch because tomorrow I'll be right back. I'll be able to figure out the stories, or even this afternoon. Okay, sometimes you have to walk away a little bit from it. But SQ is one of those stories that I didn't really even need to know what happened in the morning. We knew for a fact. Facebook's the same type of deal, but SQ is another one. We had so much selling that came in at that 72 level yet from yesterday. If we go back over our chart and we look at it as it was coming back down, that it needed to pull back all the way back up here. So guess what? Do I really need to know much about what happened here? Because this has to happen first before anything that happens. Now, am I going to be a little bit lost as we get past where it needs to pull up from? No, I'll figure it out. We'll see selling or something that comes back in. It's just me personally, I don't know a ton of what the story is going on out there is. Okay, but I do know that we have buying at 73. We have buying at 73.50. So I'm still going to be expecting this thing to pull up. And the most logical spot would be, first of all, this double top. And then the next spot would be that print line that's sitting right here at 74.07. So this is another one that I am going to keep on my list. I love trading SQ, to be honest with you. Some days it's not as great, but you know what? It's one of those stocks that I can almost guarantee you that at one point within the day, I'm going to make some type of trade on it. All right, next one. Let's talk about gray areas again. Let's talk about Tesla. All right, so we talked about in this morning's meeting, we had great buying at 320. Oh, well, by great buying, I mean, a stock that really has no orders. I think there was 3 prints, maybe 2 or 3 prints at that 320 on that ass side. So we knew the stock had to pull back down, and those prints happened during the pre-market right here. Okay. So the stock jumped up to 321. Another gray area. Now, do I think it should have been higher than 321? I do. But once again, guys, technically, did it satisfy its prints at 320? Technically. Not as much as what I would have expected, but did it technically satisfy? And of course, the answer is yes. It did. So it's another one that's kind of in that gray area. So even though in my, what I think it has to go way more above 320 than it did, what I think doesn't matter. What anyone thinks, I don't care what you look at, what we think does not make a difference within anything we should trade. If anyone says they think something and you don't see why and what's happening of what they think, guess what? It means nothing. We need definitive data that shows us this has to happen. And technically it said it had to go above 320, and it did. So we're in another kind of spot right here where I do think it's going up way higher than what the 321 of what we saw. But at the same time, I can't definitively tell you that. That's not something I could put in the high percentage trades. That's not something I could really go and really say much about, because the fact that it put us in that gray area. We want black and white, definitive, this has to happen. And this is just one of those ones that, once again, what I think and what my feel is, I have been, doing this for a little while, but it's just not something that you could put your money towards until we see some type of more information. Once again, what should happen should go higher. But you know what? It's just another perfect example. So guess what? If this happens and we have that feeling for this and we see that to technically what are followed our rules, and then we come back, we move on to something else that has not. So when we do that, let's move to Twitter. So Twitter's falling down right now. We've got some sell prints on its way. We're down at 3084 print line at 300,000 shares. There's beautiful buying up above in Twitter. And you can see the volume that this thing has been falling down on really isn't that much. Now, does that mean it's not going to come down here and fill its gap? It doesn't. But overall, this is a stock that I would look for to break above 33. It's given us a pretty substantial amount of buying there. 30.50 wasn't that great, but you know what? It shouldn't even have got up there because we should have got a pullback before there. So this whole pullback on here is, it told us exactly what it's going to have to do. It's just at this moment, are we going to have enough volume coming into the afternoon to really be able to push it back over 33 today? I don't really think so. Is it possible? Anything's possible within the market, but overall, I'm expecting the stock to come up above the 33 level. Next one we had was AMD. Now, AMD is very interesting because of the fact that we know there's a ton of buying sitting up here at 20. We also know at 1850 that we have selling. It's basically a shit show. And unfortunately, AMD, I'm not going to give you any opinion. I'm going to watch it for the rest of the day and see. You can come into the story halfway and figure out what's going to happen based off you see a dominating market maker come back in. At this moment, because I didn't get to see pretty much anything that happened within AMD, the only thing that I did see is I saw that huge buying at 20 that would have made me want to short it. I went to go place the order, trade duration froze, couldn't do anything with it. All right, even executing on a different computer, it was just pulling up the stock itself was freezing everything. So there was just nothing that I could possibly do with it. But I do know that there's buying up above there, and at this point, it's just going to have to be watching the story. But AMD is not going anywhere. We're certainly over the next, I would have to assume, and to a high probability, assume that we're going to have a lot more trades that end up coming back into this over the next. At least the next week. I mean, AMD's not good. Like I said, AMD's not going anywhere. If you look at the average volume, it trades 117 million shares. This thing is going to continue on and to keep trading. On average, trades $1.54. We're most likely going to be able to trade it every single day. It's definitely an everyday stock. But as of right now, I'm kind of out of the loop based off of missing everything that happened within this entire point. And as far as I'm concerned, everything that we've seen here is pretty much because of the amount of buying that we saw at that 20 level. We've got some buying at 1950. We've got some selling at 1950. It's kind of just all over the place. So you know what? If I don't know. I'll go find something that I do know about. And other than that, let's take a look at our scanner. But our scanner is just really ugly, and it's most of part because of the fact that there's just not really, most of the volume is going towards these everyday, these name brand stocks. But we have SNBR, absolute garbage, CPG. It's got a beautiful trend, but other than that, there's not a stock that I would trade at all. XLNX, another one where it's just the volume is way too low, for no orders out there. I need to see, there's just nothing there for me. Glue made a nice move this morning. It ended up, basically tanking, but now it's basically into a quant type stock. Nothing that we're going to be able to do with that. Twitter, we already know about. Dust, we have it as an ETF. I have traded Dust in the past, but there's no, if I'm going to trade something, more than likely it's going to be Nugget. But, beautiful trend, just nothing, for me to really go on. And then moving over to our losers, we have pretty much, once again, nothing. Now you have GG, 34 million shares. Now this one's not terrible. But at the same time, I just don't see much more room left for it. I mean, it's moved $1.36. It usually moves 32 cents. If we come back over here and we look at the actual prints themselves at 850, it doesn't really show us anything. So I'm going to put this one on our list, but I don't really expect too much out of it at all. It's basically more of, I'm going to put on the side list, really, because I just say, it's made, once again, it's made a wonderful move, $1.36, but coming into the afternoons, especially on these cheaper stocks, we don't typically see anything that's that great. NVCR, nothing going on there. TRN, 5 million, and then EFX, yeah, the rest of them are just pretty much garbage. Just not enough going on. What about T? So T is T, nothing is changing in this one. I mean, this thing printed at 30. Look at right here. This is where the 30 prints came in. You're talking about volume-wise, 1.7, almost 1.7 million coming into that 30 level. This thing is not going to have a good day. I am expecting at 29.50 at a minimum. Does that mean that it's not going to pull up a little bit? Because it really has not pulled up as much as I would have expected it to. I mean, coming up to 30.17, that's okay for the trade itself, but for the longer-term trade, for days, for days past that, I'm going to expect this thing to come up more before we end up seeing this thing really break down. And then SHOP, S-H-O-P. Let's take a look. Just not enough volume for me. I mean, it's right now it's trading 6,000 shares a minute. It's got a beautiful move. Don't get me wrong, $9.84. But for me personally, I mean, you have a print also at 137 on the ask. There's really nothing else around there that shows any type of selling. So it looks like it's going to keep going up. To be honest, I'm just not going to end up, the orders are too thin for me to trade, as well as there's just not enough. Now, if we got 2, 3, 4 prints, that might change things a little bit, but the volume has to pick up big time. But if you're an overall trader, it certainly looks like it has more room coming towards that upside. All right, guys, anything else out there that I missed? Nada. All right, beautiful. So let's get into the room. Hopefully we're going to get some type of volume that we saw, from like yesterday. But am I going to sit here and would I bet on it? No, absolutely not, because it's just we've had one of the big things, and I'll give you one of the reasons why. If I look at Facebook right now, I see 16,000 shares per minute, which is absolutely pathetic for a stock like this. If I look at Apple, and Apple's really, I don't watch the Dow or the SPY or any of that stuff, but I do watch Apple. And Apple's trading 24,000 shares a minute, which is really, really low for what it's typically trading. So when I see something like that, I don't have really high hopes. The only upside that I could see is that they're holding down the volume right now, and then they're going to then just really kind of jump into it. But I just don't see much of that. So remember, patience. There's no reason to force anything. Remember, there's going to be a tomorrow. There's going to be more trades that come out. So don't try to force anything, and especially in times like this. Especially if this morning you weren't able to read the stories because of the fact that most of our platforms kind of shit the bed a little bit. All right, guys, so I will talk to everyone in the trade room, and happy trading.